Don't buy into the fact that we are less than. When you really look at the influencers in society as it relates to people who are marginalized, it is women leading those charges.
Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Leslie Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Leslie as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions. Welcome back to Women We Should Know, the podcast where we consistently bring you the voices, the stories, the innovations, the creativity of audacious women who daily color outside of the lines, challenge the status quo by not getting into boxes created by other people, and are expanding the way we see life, the way we live in this world, and the way we interact with each other. It is always a privilege to be able to bring these voices to you. And today I have a wonderful woman to share with you. Jackie Nagel began coaching when there were less than 5,000 coaches internationally. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Whew. They had to tie themselves in all sorts of knots to explain what they could do for their potential audience. I'm sure that was a little bit tough. We'll get to hear about that. Of all the directions Jackie could have gone with her practice, she chose to work with small business entrepreneurs. We love her for that. After 23 years with the advancement of technology and the rate of change accelerating, the complexity of a micro small business is growing exponentially. Well, we've all seen that, haven't we? We're going kind of back to that family business. To coin the African proverb, it takes a village. So Jackie created Eureka to bring together a cohort of micro and small business owners to grow and develop their businesses together, to learn from each other, to share ideas and find solutions not found online. There are still things we can't find online. Did you know that?
Right.
And to minimize their struggles, their worries, their stress, and to achieve their dreams. It is absolutely my privilege and delight to introduce you to Jackie Nagel. How are you today, Jackie?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Leslie. It's such a treat to be here on your podcast and talking to your audience. And I thank you so much from the bottom of a very grateful heart.
Oh, it's a delight to have you. I will tell our audience, we almost didn't make it to the podcast. We were so busy chatting and time was flying, but here we are.
That's right.
We made it. So I have this little fun thing, Jackie, that I like to do at the beginning of every podcast. What is not in your bio that you would be willing to share with our listeners?
Well, I'm kind of an open book, so you might. Let's see, well, I think the first thing that comes to mind that's not in my bio is I taught disco in the late 70s, and that's how I met my husband. I was teaching disco at a local bar in Fargo, North Dakota, of all places.
Oh my gosh.
Love that.
Fargo.
Yes. Which is infamous in and of itself, right?
Yes, yes. Wow. Disco. Oh.
That dates me. Does that date me?
My old hippie heart can barely stand that. The idea is teaching disco.
I'm hoping that your audience will look and go, wow, she taught disco. She must have been 3 years old at the time.
So, well, you were, weren't you?
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely correct.
I have to know, and I'm sure our listeners are eager to understand. How did you land in a field that has become now a massive industry that at the time only had 5,000 people internationally? What brought you to that place?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I was in sales before I went into coaching, and was getting a little bit burned out because I had been in sales for quite some time. And I had actually worked with a therapist at the time to help me to identify where I wanted to go. I had lost so much confidence in myself when I was in sales that I was not even too sure that I could. There was, in fact, one day I was like in the paper looking for a job, right? And I saw this advertisement for donut hole fryers at Safeway, and I thought, I wonder if I could even do that. I mean, that's
Oh my.
And the good thing is the therapist had a real coaching approach, although we didn't know that that was what it was called. So with her assistance, she guided me to where I discovered this industry that was just in the beginning stages that really felt like it was a fit for me. And that's how I got started in the whole industry.
That's amazing. And okay, you've been doing this for 23 years. Sure, and I know you went to school and you did all the right things to prepare yourself. So that sales job was a while back, and industry was not kind to women back then in general. So I can understand how you got to that place of being a little bit burned out.
Yeah.
So you discovered you wanted to be a coach. As you went through that, I know you have told me that your dad was a great inspiration to you.
Great.
Of actually choosing where you wanted to take your coaching career.
Right. Like you had mentioned, there were a lot of options. There was a lot of different directions I could go in. And, frankly, I'm an experiential learner. So I dabbled in corporate coaching, I dabbled in personal coaching, and I dabbled in small business coaching. But what really inspired me to choose small business coaching was my dad. He had been a diesel mechanic in a small town in North Dakota for years, lost his job when I was a sophomore in high school. And I can't remember the reason actually why he lost his job at that point, but I just remember him being so worried about what he was going to do. And he had such a great reputation as a diesel mechanic in the farming community. So he started his own business. And what was really disheartening at the time for me was to watch the level of stress my dad experienced, because there was no place for him to go to get help. Because as it is today, it's a lot the same way. There are few people that really want to work with a small business owner, because usually there's not a lot of money and there's not a lot of compensation. So your pricing has to fit for the small business owner, and everybody wants the big bucks, right? So everybody's going to corporations and working with corporations. But having watched my dad struggle to find another voice or somebody who could guide him, because he had never owned a business before, was my inspiration to be that person for other people. That if they, as small business owners starting up their practice, what do they need to do? Where are they going? And a lot of times, small business owners, we don't even know what kind of questions we should be asking.
Right.
So that was my dad was my inspiration.
Yeah, I know that, not knowing the right questions to ask. I crashed several businesses that way.
Oh, yeah.
Had some successes, but I did crash some businesses just not knowing what questions to ask. But that is so wonderful how you got there and that you got there. I call that a moment of passion leading you toward your humanity instead of your pocketbook.
Yes, absolutely.
That happens with with us, with any of us.
Yeah.
I know you said that the most exciting thing for you is watching what happens and watching these business owners blossom and watching their businesses explode. What is that like?
Well, I never had children, so I don't know if that is a good comparison, but that's kind of when I see it in my brothers and sisters and in my nieces and nephews as they watch their kids accomplish. And I hear of other parents talking, that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's a tremendous moment of pride, but also I do have to say, it's just this, I don't even know how to express it because it's not about me. It really is about them.
Right.
I always feel like I am, like the key is already in the lock of the treasure chest that each business owner has. And all I do is come along and jiggle it. But the success that they've achieved is really on their own. And I think what is most exciting is to see how surprised they are themselves. Achieving what they've always wanted to achieve, but maybe they ran into roadblocks and didn't really know how to overcome them. And to have somebody to kind of guide them through those obstacles, yeah, kind of opened up doors for them.
I have such respect for that perspective. I have met individuals, I bet you've seen them too, who have had the same business coach for a very long time and that coach has let them come to a space of believing that they can't do it without them.
Oh, yes.
And you instead take the approach of empowering them to know you are just there to support them.
Right, right.
I have great respect for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for being out there helping small business owners.
Well, it really is my pleasure. I mean, there's a paycheck that I get that has no numbers, that will beat anybody's paycheck because of that personal gratification. It's about legacy. It's about making a difference, because it's also about creating that ripple effect, just like in the work that you do with women, you know, and like throwing a rock in a pond and it just keeps on perpetuating.
And you're just a little rock sitting there where you landed, but you get to watch.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Now let's get into some business talk for our listeners. I know one of the things that you speak to with great levels of expertise is the importance of continually upgrading skills, continually learning, continuing to expand your knowledge base.
Right. In fact, it started about a year ago where I had been working with clients. They had gone from low six-figure revenue to mid six-figure. And what I was beginning to see was people were doubling down on the skill set that they had used that got them there. And in a conversation with one of my clients, I said to her, you know, what got you here won't get you there. So it started to open up that conversation about, oh yeah, so these are the skills that got me to mid six-figure. Now what? Now what are what's the next level of skills that I need to develop based on where my business is at and what it's going to take for me to get my business up to that next step. So I'm a big advocate for learning, especially group learning. I think is so important. Like you had mentioned early on about it, the African proverb, it takes a village. And I believe that. There's a new book out called The Extended Mind. It's been written by an author, Annie Murphy Paul. And in there, she talks about groupthink. And sometimes we think groupthink, that's like, oh, we're all going to be just lemmings, you know, and I'll go along with the workflow, but it's not. It's about thinking with peers. And studies have shown that there are neural pathways that are stimulated when we're in a group conversation, and we become much more creative. And so that's why I also like gathering people together, so that we can all learn from each other. And that helps to stimulate our creativity and continue to advance our skills.
That's brilliant. And one more time, what's the name of that book and that author?
The Extended Mind. And the author is Annie Murphy Paul.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be getting
Excellent book.
what a brain science geek I am. And I know from the comments that many of the listeners are brain science geeks. So we'll all be dashing out and checking that out.
Very good. Very good.
When you are encouraging them to get more education, to up-level their skills, we are at a certain saturation point with information between what's on the internet. I'm sure some days it just appalls you how many people have thrown up a shingle that says coach on it after all the education you went through to be able to do that. And the books that are helpful, but sometimes conflicting. How do you help your clients know what directions to look in, or how to assess what is going to be of benefit?
You know, that's a really good question. I think that there is, it comes from asking a lot of questions, asking my clients a lot of questions, understanding them, knowing who they are, knowing what they want, they want to achieve, and how they want to achieve it in their business. And there's no cookie cutter approach that works for everybody. So it's through asking a lot of questions, and it starts to like open things up and helps to give us some insight into, okay, this is going to be the best path for now, because it can change also as we get more information.
Absolutely. Now, if you were going to share with our listeners one tip, two if you like, but one tip on, now when you're expanding your skills, that approach or that road is rarely a good idea. It rarely is beneficial.
Wow. I have to narrow it down to just one, huh?
No. Give them a grocery list.
Oh, you know what? So here's what I would say. Be wary of the expert. The expert, the quote unquote expert who's out there who says, this is how you should do it. This is how it's done. Because the truth is, that's not always the case. And you really, I think it's so much better to trust the expert that is within yourself than to look outside for so many experts to tell us what we should think and how we should do our business. I mean, certainly there's some insight in there, but to follow an expert blindly is not a strategy that I recommend.
That's a great tip, because we're seeing a lot of people put expert on there right beside coach. They're putting
right. Oh my God, don't get me started.
Oh, yes. Well, I get it.
Yeah.
I know another thing that you stress when you're speaking, when you're writing, when you're speaking with business owners is the absolute importance and the unquestionable benefit of carving out time to really sit and think and rethink their business model, their strategies.
Right.
Could you speak to that?
Sure. You know, there was a recent study that showed only 4 to 7% of business owners are actually strategic thinkers. And a big part is because of the lack of time, right? We're so busy running our business that we don't take the time. And a lot of times it's because if we don't have the time, or don't feel like we can take the time, it's because usually our business model is wrong, or it's become irrelevant, or where our services are underpriced and we are over capacity, or we don't have the team, or we're not trusting our team. There's a lot of different reasons why.
Those are great insights, just that, but please continue.
Yeah, so the notion when people say, I don't have the time, it's real. You know, I've heard some quote unquote experts again say, well, you have to take the time. Well, it's not that easy, you know, to just take the time again, when as a small business owner. But I'm a big advocate for using the cracks of time. You know, like you're stuck in traffic where all COVID is waning in its stages of waning. So we're back out on the roads, many of us. So it's if you're stuck in traffic, use that time rather than listening to the news. Or if you're in line at the grocery store, use that time to think more strategically. When you're in the shower, it's a different muscle that we just need to exercise in those seemingly insignificant cracks of time. Hey, when we're waiting for a Zoom meeting to begin.
There we go.
We've got a minute, give it a minute.
Give it a minute, give it a minute. That makes me think of a conversation I was having with a friend the other day. And we were talking about being excited to get on planes again. And
Said no one ever.
Said no one ever. I know, but I am. But I told her, I said, you know, one of the most exciting parts is sitting in the airport. I miss that airport time when I'm going through my computer and I'm being very conscious about all the little details and I'm connecting dots I haven't had time to connect. And somehow I never put that into my non-airport life during the last couple of years. So I've got to get back to airports.
Yes, that's right. It reminds me of when I lived in Virginia and had some business to do in Los Angeles. And, you know, it's like every plane went through Dallas and there was always storms. Right. And I used to love it when the storms would come through Dallas and my plane would be delayed, because that was that important time that I had to really think things through.
I know. I don't want to sit in an airport for 4 or 5 hours, but I really enjoy a 2 hour or 2.5 hour time to get something to eat, get a chai, maybe a chai latte, and sit down and get everything connected in a clean way. You speak a lot about community, from your African proverb to the fact that you have created Eureka. Can you speak about why and how you see that being of specific benefit to the micro or small business owner? We all know we need community, but I think we can get a little isolated in our professional lives.
And I think the other thing, when you say about needing community, some of the things that I see is that small business owners will also go on social media like Twitter or LinkedIn and Facebook, but the conversations are just different. There's a lot of personal conversations, there's a lot of political conversations that are going on. And the micro business owner really needs conversations about business, right? Again, that thinking with peers. And so that's why I'm also a big believer. In fact, when I set up Eureka, it's set up completely separate from any social media, because I feel like we've got enough distractions, and that when we have this sense of community, we need to be really focused on our business and what we might be able to learn. But it's also a place to go and ask questions. When you begin to think in a silo, we lose our perspective of what might be possible, because we all carry our unconscious biases with us.
Oh, don't we though?
Yeah. And so being involved in a community helps to challenge those, if you will. It helps us to think differently and approach our business differently.
As you're working with small businesses and micro businesses, well, you know, my thing is women and
Right.
uplifting women. And I think there are 3 people on the planet that haven't heard that bullshit. But one of the things I'm seeing and I'm watching, and I'm sure you're seeing because I know you follow all the business news, is that businesses, from small businesses, but even the Fortune level businesses,
Yeah.
100, 200, 500, the ones that have more than one, and even more so if they have more than 2 women, are actually showing increased gains consistently on a quarterly basis
Right.
over that of the businesses that don't. How does this trickle down? How does this play out in micro and small businesses? Is this mirrored in small business?
It is really interesting. Well, first of all, I think because corporations are not recognizing women and their abilities and promoting them to their level
That's right.
of their abilities, I think a lot of corporations are losing a lot of talent.
Absolutely.
And because these women are like, okay, I'm pretty much done with that. And they're going out and they're starting their own business. And the one thing that is really interesting that I see is the compassion for employees and the team, right?
Yes.
And when I say team, a lot of small businesses have teams made up, they're hybrids, they're employees, and they're also freelancers. But I see a tremendous amount of compassion for employees. I see greater listening to what the team has to say and incorporating what the suggestions that the team makes. The other thing that I find really fascinating is that in the women-owned small businesses, the benefits that they provide are phenomenal. They provide healthcare, they provide 401ks, they provide these benefits that you would not think a small business owner could provide. And it's a struggle for them, but they do it anyway because they recognize how important it is to the people that they're working with.
Of course they do, because women have always run the home. They've always taken care of all of that. They understand the psychic and emotional cost of being without.
Right, exactly.
I saw something just at the beginning of COVID that really inspired me, and I'm waiting to see how it plays out post-COVID. And that is that Kevin OLeary, we know Kevin OLeary from the Tank, he was invited to speak at the International Women's Conference. It wasn't in the US, I don't remember where. And he was saying that at that point in time, with his 30 plus businesses, he would, and I'm paraphrasing, he would be hard pressed to buy another male-founded, male-run business. Because he said of the 30 plus businesses he owned, 65% of the women-founded, woman-owned businesses hit their KPI regularly, showed consistent quarterly gains, as opposed to only 35% of the male-founded, male-owned businesses. So when we start getting people who have that level of notoriety speaking to these truths that have been ignored,
Right.
not that they haven't been out there, they just have been ignored for so long, I find that very encouraging for women.
Yes. You know, it's interesting because the same thing is true. I had not heard that Kevin had said that, but I love it and it makes sense. Because when you look statistically at publicly owned companies that are run by female CEOs, which are, I mean, they're like unicorns, right? Even after all this time, that they provide a better return on investment to their shareholders. And I'm thinking, what is it in the mind of the decision maker that says, oh, we have this woman over here who will likely produce a greater return. But we're going to go this route.
I know.
Think about that one for a while.
Well, the point is they don't think about that one.
Right.
They're
right,
moving
right.
by rote.
Yes.
They're moving by habit and tradition and structure and all of those things. Something I'm curious if you've become aware of that I've recently been following is the fact that there are growing numbers of women. You spoke about those women in those big corporations who are still not achieving leadership position. They are still not achieving equity. There is rather an exodus of sorts, and they are leaving those big corporate and fortune worlds, taking with them all of the professional collateral that they have built up over a long time, their professional equity, and they are founding businesses, but they're also founding nonprofits and foundations that are benefiting women and children. And I find this greatly inspiring. Have you had an opportunity to encounter any of these women and interplay with them?
No, I'm not at the level that I generally work because of the smaller business owner, but what it reminds me of is what Mackenzie Scott is doing.
Oh,
What Melinda
love her,
is doing.
such respect. Yes.
Yes, right. And it's just, I think that as more and more high profile women do that, I think that we'll see more women at the small business level doing a lot of the same.
And based on the interviews I did, there are quite a lot, and they're also leaving academia.
Oh,
but taking that out and applying that professional equity to foundations and nonprofits where they can continue to feel like they are making a significant difference for our future, creating great legacy, but they are not being required to do 3 people's jobs.
Right.
At 2/3 of a person's income.
Amen to that, right? So 2 thoughts. First one is when you talk about the 2/3 of a person's income, I think of what predominantly women went through during COVID in being the primary caregiver, to be at home with children, to be there for their families. And I often think of the impact that it has on their retirement. No wonder women are having such a hard time with retirement, because we're continually being pulled out of the marketplace and being the go-to individual in the home.
If women had been paid an hourly wage for all unpaid labor during 2021, the numbers are in now.
Oh.
And even if they were only paid our deplorable minimum wage,
right,
it would have amounted to $1.5 trillion.
Wow.
$1.5 trillion is essentially what women had robbed from them. So we'll keep getting out there and building small businesses. Entrepreneurialism was made for women.
Yeah.
Women are making great strides in entrepreneurialism, and we'll have wonderful women like you to help us do these projects and build these businesses. Well,
thank you. I think that there comes, as woman to woman, we understand that we can't just go to work, right?
Nope.
And go home. We go to work, we go home, we clean the house, we do laundry, we get groceries. If you've got kids, you're raising kids, you're getting them to school. There's so much.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You and I never chose to have children, and we're still scurrying around. I can't fathom
what it would be like, right?
On a working mother. I could go on and on. But as we come to nearing the close of our conversation today, what did I not ask you? What did I not give you room to speak about that you have a passion for, or that you believe it is very important for our women listeners who are micro and small business owners to know at this time?
Well, I think one of the first things that comes to mind is when you were talking about women getting, being in such a position of being role models to other women. And what's really struck me about that, Leslie, was thinking about how as women from my generation, but I also see it in those who are from the younger generation, that we need to be careful so that we don't buy into the fact that we are less than.
Yes.
And because when you really look at the influencers in society as it relates to voting rights and people who are marginalized,
Yes.
It is women that are leading those charges.
Yes.
And women are the people. Women are making the difference, not
Yes.
making a difference. We are making the difference.
difference. That's right.
Yeah. And we need to remember that and embrace that and never, ever minimize our contributions. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that is important to me as a woman, and that I would want other women to know about themselves.
Thank you for that. And if I may dovetail on that, is that okay with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I would also encourage the younger women, well, the women closer to our age, to let go of this idea, but the younger women to never, ever adopt the idea that there is limited real estate. That single idea has belabored women of my generation. You're a little junior to me. It has belabored women of your generation. And it's vital that we no longer buy into that complete fallacy.
Right. Yep.
As I like to say, women's skills are undervalued, but show me a better negotiator than a woman who is trying to gracefully maintain her relationship with her teenage daughter while explaining to her that she's not wearing the prom dress. Is cut below the navel.
Yeah, that's true negotiation skills, isn't it?
That's true. She could out negotiate any big negotiator in any business arena.
Right, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jackie. It's been just a delight to speak with you.
Leslie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm really honored to be part of your podcast and your soon to be released book.
Yes, let's make sure that all the listeners know that Jackie contributed a truly valuable section to On the Shoulders of Mighty Women that is coming out soon. So you'll want to be sure and look for her within the pages. Get more business wisdom. So thanks for bringing that up, Jackie.
My pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for your faithful commitment to tuning in and listening to women have conversations about things that are real, things that matter to women and things that impact women, and ways that we can be more present for each other and leave a greater legacy for our daughters and for our granddaughters and those who will even come after them. As I always do for all of you, I'm going to put Jackie's contact information, her website, everything on her program notes. So Like always, you don't have to stop driving, write it down. You don't have to stop jogging. Just go to the program notes. It'll all be right there for you. And when you go, click subscribe and leave Jackie a comment. Leave her a question. We'll pass it on to her. She'll be glad to answer it for you. And as you go through your day, I just want you to remember, you are wiser and stronger than you know.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you received inspiration for expanding your own social innovation and influence. Help us inspire others by sharing this episode and leaving your comments over at lesliemichaels.com/podcast. For more tips, insights, and support in creating a fully audacious, professional, and personal lifestyle you love, visit our Women We Should Know community on Facebook.